Digital Nomad, and today we have a very special guest, and that's Neville from Genki Insurance. And we're going to talk a few important things about travel and health insurance for digital nomads because we get a lot of questions and we want to answer some really common questions. And now I'm going to let Neville introduce himself, and we're going to start chatting about some cool topics.
Awesome. Andrew, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm Neville, one of the co-founders of Genki. We are a health company focused specifically on digital nomads and other long-term travelers. And I became a nomad myself first in 2012, so a little over 10 years ago now. Travel a little bit slower these days, more of a slow mad, but still very involved in this lifestyle, and actually have become a digital nomad dad in the last few years and been navigating like nomading as a family and living in other countries while having kids and all that fun stuff.
That all makes sense, and probably that's one of the reasons why you started the company, because you know the lifestyle very well, and then you can basically create the products also for families and for expats. And I know you've got a lot of offerings. So what can you tell us about travel and health insurance in the Genki context, but also as a whole for the nomad industry?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first thing that is important just to mention is that it is important to have some sort of health cover wherever you are in the world while you're traveling. There are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to health insurance. It's complicated as a topic to begin with. So just understanding clearly like what cover you already have and what health cover you may need. A lot of people, for example, they get something like a short-term travel insurance, maybe through an online bank or one of their credit cards, and they say, oh, I signed up for this card or this bank and it came with insurance, so I'm covered. But then if you need to use it and you actually read the fine print, or you go to file a claim and you find out things like that type of insurance might only cover you for something like 28 days while you're abroad, or it might only cover you in specific countries, or it might exclude certain activities that you're doing like sports. And same for the insurance that you have in your home country, right? You may have great health insurance in your home country, and maybe they say they offer international coverage, but then when you read the details, you may find that it's only for a short period of time. It only covers you up to a very small limit, so maybe it's okay if you have some minor thing, but it doesn't really fully cover you in case of emergencies. So I would say the first thing to be aware of is just knowing that you should have health cover wherever you are in the world. Things happen, unfortunately.
Sure.
And just because you have some cover doesn't necessarily mean that it fully covers you for the activities that you're doing. So I would look for, if you are a digital nomad or a long-term traveler, an expat, I would look for insurance that's made for that lifestyle.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I would also recommend that there are plenty of options on the market. I think Neville, let's talk a bit about these types of insurances that you can easily get with a credit card, with like cards like Revolut or any other providers that offer this kind of health insurance. So I know for a fact that a lot of them cover you for a short period of time, and also like the coverage is quite small. So what would you say about these types of insurances? I mean, obviously they're very convenient to get, right? Because they're on your credit card, don't have to do much. So when would these types of insurances be fit for purpose?
Yep. So I think first of all, it's important to distinguish between travel insurance and health insurance. And again, the industry, there's so many confusing terms in insurance, but just to make it very simple, travel insurance is really designed to cover your trip. That's the basic idea of it. So in the old days, it was common to say, go to a travel agent and prepay some, big fee or part of a fee for, like, let's say you were going on a long vacation and you had some hotels and flights and all this kind of stuff, and you'd put down some deposit, and then maybe for whatever reason the trip got canceled. And that's what travel insurance covered. And then there was also things like your baggage might get lost or damaged. You had booked some hotel, but the flight got canceled and you couldn't make it there, or you had to stay an extra day. So all of these sorts of like incidental things that happen while you're traveling. That's really what travel insurance is designed to cover, your trip. Not
So it's mostly related to the operational part, not necessarily to the health. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, travel insurance often does include a medical component, but again, when you dig into the details of that, it's usually quite limited in terms of what it covers, in terms of how much it covers, where you're covered, and what's especially relevant for nomads is it's often very limited in terms of how long you can stay abroad, outside of your home country, or in any one given country. And as nomads, we tend to travel for long periods of time. We don't necessarily have a fixed itinerary. We're not always going, for 2 weeks and then coming back. We're often saying,
Yeah.
well, I'm going to go to Bali for a month, and then I think I might spend the winter in Thailand, but some of my friends are going to Vietnam, so I'm not. I mean, this is our typical customers. This is how they travel. We don't know in advance what our itinerary is going to be. We're staying typically for weeks or months or even longer in a place at a time. And so none of those limits really make sense.
But even Neville, I would say even for remote workers or professionals who just want to have like a workation of 2 months, let's say in Morocco or in Tenerife, or let's say in an exotic country, they should also plan for that, because in 2 months a lot can happen, right? So even though they would be coming home in 2 months, if something happens in a place like Egypt or Morocco, they want to have that insurance with them. So I would say even for short term, it makes sense to look very, very carefully to these types of insurances and what your credit card is giving you, or if Genki or any other provider is better. So just always compare. Even if you're like a remote worker and you have like smaller passages like a month or two, it makes sense to pay that extra 30% to have like a solid insurance.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what the solutions are. We've talked about kind of like the problems with other insurance. So there are two types of insurance that I think are relevant for people living these lifestyles that we're talking about. And those are travel health insurance and international health insurance. Travel health insurance is really designed for the exact scenario that we're talking about, for someone who has insurance in their home country, or some health cover. So either like as an American, you might have private health insurance, either through an employer or like a marketplace plan, or in Europe, you often have, say, like the national health system or some sort of public health care. And that's great. When you're in your home country, you're covered. God forbid anything happens to you, whether it's a small issue or some sort of like long-term ongoing treatment, you have cover for that. And the problem is, as you said, maybe you go to Morocco or you go to Tenerife or you go somewhere else, Australia, and you don't have cover there. For that, travel health insurance is perfect. It basically covers you in the rest of the world outside of your home country, and it's designed to take care of anything that comes up while you're traveling. But the understanding is that if you have some new long-term chronic condition, you still have some other insurance or some other health care that you can go back to, right? So it'll get you better wherever you are in the world, and then at some point you go back home and then you have some other insurance or, again, public health system there that takes care of you. So if that's your situation, I would recommend travel health insurance. We offer a product called Genki Explorer. It covers every country in the world. You can see any doctor or go to any hospital if you have any sort of medical issue. There's no maximum cover amount. So wherever you are in the world, if you have a medical issue, you can get that taken care of.
And what's the time frame you can create this insurance for with Genki, for example?
Yeah, so you can sign up online. It takes a few minutes. You can get insured the same day. We then cover you. It's a monthly subscription like Spotify or Netflix. We just charge your credit card every month. So you can keep it for as little as 1 month or as long as a maximum of 2 years. 2 years is a very long time for travel health insurance, but in terms of like your overall health in life, 2 years is a short period. And that's why it's important that you also, if you're choosing that type of insurance, it's really important that you also have some other long-term cover to fall back on. Because again, worst case scenario, and we buy insurance for these worst case scenarios. Worst case scenario, if you have some disease that's a long-term disease that you develop, cancer or something like this, the travel health insurance will cover you while you're abroad. But at some point, you'll either go back home or you'll reach that 2-year limit and it will end, and then you're not covered anymore. And if you go buy new private insurance, they're going to say, sorry, you already have that condition. We don't want to cover that you already have cancer. Like, we're not going to pay for that in most cases. So it's very important if you choose travel health insurance that you have some long-term cover. If you don't, that's where the other option comes in, and that's international health insurance. And so for those of us who live these kind of like long-term international lifestyles, often expats, families like mine, we're not necessarily just going abroad for a month and coming back to a home country. We're moving from country to country over a long period of time and living this lifestyle. International health insurance is designed exactly for that. So it's long-term. There's no 2-year limit, anything like that. And it's really designed to be full health insurance, like a replacement for what you might have in your home country.
And
So,
that would make sense to get whenever you would be living a lot abroad and you don't want to go
yep.
back home anytime soon, correct?
Exactly. Well, also a lot of nomads and remote workers and long-term travelers, we often say like opt out of the local health insurance system in our home countries because it tends to be very expensive. You know, geo arbitrage is a popular topic. So, like again, if you're an American and you're leaving the
Yeah.
U.S. and traveling and working overseas, it's very expensive to stay in the U.S. healthcare system, especially if you're not using it. And
Also
likewise in
in
Europe.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Likewise in Europe, you have to pay a lot of tax, even though, and if you're employed in Europe under a contract and you're traveling around, you'll be paying a lot for the the public health care,
Exactly.
right? So if you want to opt out of
Exactly.
that, you need the variant.
Exactly. So if you opt out of the healthcare system in your home country, then the question is, let's say you've planned as far as, 3 months from now, you know where you're traveling, but then what happens at the end of that? And
Correct.
if during those 3 months or the next year or any time period, you develop some medical issue and you no longer have cover in your home country, you want to be very sure that you have some insurance that you can stay on as long as you need it. And that's again where international health insurance comes in. And it can also cover things like, again, everything you would normally have in like local traditional health insurance. So preventive care, checkups, cancer screenings, also things like childbirth, vision and dental care, all of that can be included in international health insurance. And we also offer a version of that called Genki Resident. That's our long-term plan.
I see. Okay. So I mean, I think this plan makes sense for people who are maybe, pay low taxes in other countries, and they just register there with the residencies, and they have also like a company in the States that where they also pay low tax, and then they just travel around and they need access to good healthcare in other countries like maybe Thailand, or I don't know. Can you use this insurance in Europe, Neville? Like, let's say
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
American, you live in Thailand, but you want to come to Germany for like checkups and stuff like that. Would
Yeah,
that work?
absolutely. So
Mhm.
both types of insurance that we offer worldwide cover. So we cover every single country on the planet. You do have some options to reduce the price by saying, "Oh, well, I'm not planning to travel to this country, so I don't want cover there." So you can choose to exclude countries to change the price, but we cover every single country in the world, including everywhere in Europe. The only restrictions to keep in mind are cover in your home country. There are some different options there. So on travel health insurance, it's limited to 6 weeks per
Mhm.
half year. And on the international health insurance, it's limited to 180 days per calendar year. So you could still spend almost
Yes.
half of your year in your home country, which is common, and then travel the other part of the year, especially for Europeans who want to be home for the summer, be home to visit family, come home maybe for Christmas or other holidays, and then be abroad during the colder parts of the year is a common travel pattern.
That's a great option. I've never seen that with other travel insurances and health insurances. So I think that would also fit me because I do spend a few months a year in Europe, back home in my home bases in the UK and Romania. So that would be great. Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. So maybe let's talk about short-term vs long-term insurance. Like, what should people look at when they travel? Maybe we answered this question, but let's make it clear. So what should people be looking at when they travel 1 or 2 months? And yes, when they travel 6 to 12 months, what types of insurances they should be looking at for both health and travel, and does it make sense for them at any point to get this kind of credit card or kind of like very cheap insurances?
Sure. So again, I focus specifically on health. I mean, that's our mission as a company. That's what we're focused on, but that's not the only reason, right? So when it comes to like airplane tickets or your bags or things like that, you sort of have like a known cost, right? Like worst case scenario, you lose the value of the ticket or you lose
Correct.
the, 1,000 euros worth of stuff in your suitcase or whatever it is. And that sucks if it happens, and it makes sense to insure against that risk if you'd like to, but at least you have sort of like a known kind of like maximum loss or something like that. When it
Yeah.
comes to your health, basically there's no limit to the amount of money someone would be willing to pay to stay alive, to stay healthy, to repair some issue. And unfortunately, as we know in many countries, there's also sort of no limit to how much it can cost. If you're in a place like Switzerland, certainly in the United States, but even in other countries, even in countries where there's a low cost of living, often the cost of medical care for some emergency, for like medical transportation, any kind of surgery, sometimes even just treatment for infectious diseases, like these can be quite expensive. And so it's important to have a plan that fully covers you wherever you are and without any sort of limit to the amount of cover that you may need.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And that's in the
I'll,
case of
mhm.
both short-term and long-term travel. So anywhere you're going for any period of time, I would make sure that you're fully covered in that country for any sort of medical issue that may come up. If you want to then buy travel insurance on top of that to again cover the cost of your tickets or your luggage or anything like that, sure, that can make sense too, and it's usually quite cost effective to do that.
I think that's an easy one to answer because you've got a lot of options from the credit card companies, from third party underwriters, and so on and so forth. So it's quite easy to get like a travel insurance for your bags and delayed tickets and stuff
Exactly.
like that. So that's solved. But yeah, I think what you're saying is that always look for a solid travel insurance for a month or two if you're traveling for a month or two, and that makes sense to me. I had a problem in the Philippines where I had a huge toe infection, and I'm so
Yeah.
happy I had that insurance with me. It wasn't Genki, but maybe next time.
Mhm.
And yeah, I managed to get my money back for the treatment, and also I had the peace of mind that I'm insured, and however much that would have costed, I would have been covered. So that was great. And yes, I
Yeah.
couldn't recommend more because yeah, you have like, especially as a European or Westerner, when you travel to these exotic countries like Thailand, Philippines, there are different bugs and bacteria and all those things you can contract, and it can turn into something really nasty. I was really scared, to be frank. So yes, I mean, also, maybe Morocco, Egypt, something can happen there as well. You never know, so you want to get insured. That's my advice.
Yeah, I mean things can happen anywhere in the world. I don't want to give people the impression that, you should only worry about your health if you're going to some
Sure.
strange exotic place. Um Obviously accidents happen as well,
Yeah.
right? You can slip anywhere, you can get in a car
Motorbike
accident anywhere,
accidents. Yeah.
motorcycle.
Yeah.
Some of the most common claims among our customers. Also, you mentioned peace of mind, which I think is an important topic, right? We talk a lot about the money side of it, getting reimbursed. There are a few things that are I didn't understand until even like I got into this industry as well myself. Coming from the United States, and as often is the case in Europe as well, the hospitals are often public, or the way they're licensed by the government. They're basically required to treat you and then figure out the money situation, right? So often in Europe, again, it's like a public health system, so it's just part of the taxes that you're already paying. In the US, we have private insurance, but in the US, you can walk into any emergency room anywhere in the country, and they are required to treat you. Regardless, you could be homeless, you could be, have no money to pay, you could have no insurance. They have to treat you for an emergency medical situation. And then, of course, you might get a horrible bill afterwards, but okay, at least you're alive. This
Yeah.
is not the case everywhere in the world. And as a foreigner traveling, especially in countries that are not necessarily at the same level of income, you may end up in a medical situation where you need urgent medical treatment, and you go to a hospital, or someone takes you to a hospital, and the people at the hospital say, okay, we know you need treatment, but how are you going to pay for it? And they're not starting your treatment until you
Very
can
interesting.
prove that you can pay for it. And especially when you're in an emergency situation, you don't necessarily speak the language, you don't necessarily have any sort of like cash on you. Maybe you have a credit card, but they might want something like tens of thousands of dollars or euros to start treatment. I mean, I don't want to scare people, but the point I'm trying to make is that it is not just about getting the money back. It's also about having someone who's on your side
Exactly.
wherever you go in the world.
A good partner.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so whichever company you use, um, in addition to making sure that you have cover, look for something like an emergency assistance plan that's also included with the insurance. In our case, that looks like a 24/7 hotline that you can call or that the hospital can call. And so anywhere in the world, in any country, if you're in the hospital, get in touch with that hotline, or the hospital can call them, and they will guarantee payment directly to the hospital in an emergency. So the hospital knows that they can start treating you immediately, and that the money will be there, that they will get paid directly by the insurance company. And that, again, as you said, medical care and even like bacteria and different things can differ wherever you are in the world.
Sure.
So that those same emergency assistance people will monitor the quality of your care and make sure they'll have a doctor, an independent doctor separate from the hospital, who will call you and check in to follow up, see what's going on. Like, did that infection get resolved? Are you being treated up to the standard that you would normally get in Europe, for example? Or do we need to transport you to some other hospital that's better equipped? Maybe you're somewhere really remote and, like they stabilized you, but now we need to move you somewhere where you can get proper treatment and all of that. So insurance in this case is not just the money, but it's also having a health partner who's on your side wherever you go in the world.
Yeah, that's very good to know. I wasn't actually aware about that because it didn't happen to me, but it's good to know that you can actually have a hotline and then that doctor or the manager can talk to the insurance and they can guarantee for your treatment and the that actually your cover. So that's very good to know, and I think people should definitely be looking into that, and they should also be looking into emergency medical evacuation, like just in case you have to be you know more about that, Neville, but just in case you have to be repatriated or sent to a better hospital outside the country, if you're like in a less developed country. So I've heard
Mhm.
about cases where people had to be flown to Singapore from Bali or things like that. So yeah, that's
Exactly.
extremely good to know. And always have like a copy of the insurance with you, the hotline number. Make sure there
Mhm.
is a number like a chat, like a non-stop chat that, and there's a human behind that you can talk to, because you will need that. Like I used that a few times and it was very good to have. And also, yeah, just test the system, try the chat before you leave, I would say, and talk to that team and see how you get along, because you will probably have to use them at one point, hopefully not, but yeah.
Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, that's the thing, is that like a lot of these things we're talking about are kind of extreme cases, but again, that's why you buy insurance. That's what you want to be covered for. We hope you never have to use these benefits, but they're there for you when you need them. And as you said, I think that's great advice. Like, do not wait until you have some emergency and like, you're in some urgent situation to at least like whatever insurance you have, our company or any other company, like figure out how you file a claim in advance and just have the phone number saved in your phone. It takes like 5 minutes to figure this out, and just add a contact in your phone with all of the information, like your policy number, the emergency number, whatever number you might need to call, any information like that. Just save it all in your phone, or maybe like print out a backup copy of it and stick it in your backpack or your suitcase, just so if anything happens, you're not like, it's the one time that your phone is also dead and you're trying to find the
Exactly.
information. And again, the hospital's waiting before starting treatment. Just like, this is great stuff to figure out either before you leave or whenever you sign up for the insurance, and just have all of that information somewhere handy.
Yeah, exactly. So I usually have my passport copy. I've got my few medical things with me, and then I have a copy, like a printed copy of my health insurance with me. Actually, I have two,
Mhm.
and I just hide them in my luggage. One I have in my small pack, the other one in the backpack. So they're always in hand. If I lose a bag, then I have the other one as a backup. So always, it honestly it takes like 10 minutes to plan all this stuff, like all the
Yep.
legal paper. Just print a few PDFs, and that's it. And saves you a lot of headaches. And obviously have everything on the cloud like Google Drive or OneDrive, just a few papers there, and that's great. Fantastic. That's really good to know. I think we shared a lot of good information here. So Neville, another question I get, and I'm really excited about this one because I'm a big sports fan, and I also do snowboarding in the winter and surfing in the summer whenever I can. The better,
Mhm.
the more, the better. And we get this question a lot about the extreme sports insurance. So I'll let you talk about that, but from what I know, a lot of health insurances do not cover extreme sports unless you pay a bit extra. So tell us about how health insurance see the extreme sports, and also how people can make sure they can get insured whenever they do extreme sports.
Yeah, sure. And you mentioned extreme sports, but honestly, like, one person's extreme sport is another person's Tuesday. So,
Yeah,
uh,
extreme.
yeah, the definitions really do vary quite a bit. So I mean, at the start of this conversation, we talked about, if you already have insurance, read carefully the policy details, check to make sure you're actually covered if you think you're covered, right? And so that includes what we talked about, like what country are you going to and how long are you staying there, but also what activities are you planning to do,
Correct.
and make sure that you actually have insurance that covers the things that you're doing. For example, we talked about traveling in Southeast Asia, places like Bali and Thailand. It's very common to ride a scooter or a motorbike, either to rent one yourself and drive it, or to like ride on the back of a taxi, like a moto taxi. It's like the most common form of transportation in that part of the world. There's nothing extreme about it. It's just the way people get to work or go buy their groceries. Many insurance companies exclude that. Um,
Correct.
both of our plans do include riding a scooter or a motorcycle, regardless of whether you have a license in that country or not, or whether you're the driver or the passenger, whether you're wearing a helmet or not. Like, any sort of medical
Okay.
injury that results from an accident is covered. The only exception, as long as you're not racing and as long as you're not drunk.
Yeah.
But if you're just riding on a scooter, getting to from point A to point B, and you have a medical issue as a result of an accident or anything, that would be covered. In
I'm
terms
happy
of
to hear. Yeah, I'm happy to
Mhm.
hear. Let me add something, Neville. Here, I'm happy to hear that because I've studied a lot the health insurances from smaller and bigger companies, and a lot of them do ask for to have either the international driver's license to be qualified for the scooter insurance, or
Mhm.
yeah, to have a helmet or things like that. I'm not saying it's not good to have them, but knowing that Genki, for example, supports not having this, it's great because it can happen that you don't have the helmet with you for 5 minutes or things like that. So it's really reassuring to know that other companies do offer that.
Yeah, like to be clear, I always recommend only drive vehicles that you know how to drive, that you have a license
Yeah,
for, and wear a helmet and be safe. But again, realistically, when you're in that part of the world, again, it's very common that you might say, use a moto taxi to get from the train
exactly.
station to the place where you're staying, or something like that.
And they
And
don't offer a helmet on the back
yeah,
seat.
they don't
Yeah,
always offer you a helmet, and you don't realistically have an alternative. So us telling you, "Oh, you didn't wear a helmet. Sorry, that accident is now your problem," is not being a good health partner for you. So again, that's covered. You asked about sports, though. So it's very important, as we said. Many insurance companies exclude sports. Actually, all of them have some definition of what's included and excluded. We include all sports and activities by default, but there are a small handful that are excluded from our travel health insurance. That's the shorter term monthly plan, Genki Explorer. And that includes things like bungee jumping, base jumping, jumping out of an airplane, as I mentioned, car and motorcycle racing. So those are like the more extreme ones. There are a few others, though, that climbing and mountaineering with specialized equipment, something a lot of nomads like to do. Climb, unfortunately, is excluded under that one, as is diving, which is another popular activity. That's something we've worked on getting included. We're working with our insurance partners, but at the moment, those are excluded. Uh,
are there any insurances on the market, Neville, that offer cover for scuba diving? Because that's popular, as you say. Yes.
Yeah, it is popular. I can't speak to the cover of other companies, but I know you can often purchase on the day when you're doing those types of activities. A lot of times, the actual company that's organizing the activity will offer you like a daily additional insurance that you can add on.
Included. Yeah, or it's
Yeah,
included
yeah, included
sometimes.
or as like an add-on. I'd look into that. For our international health insurance, the Genki Resident Plan, that includes all sports and other activities. There are no sports exclusions, so all of the things, even the dangerous ones, even jumping out of an airplane, it's all covered. The only exception is for professional sports. So, like if you're playing football as a professional for Real Madrid or something like that, you have separate insurance for that. We're not covering
Yeah,
professional people.
I can understand why the salaries and the money in that game are ridiculous. So
Yeah, and it's a different risk profile, right? So
yeah,
so like if you go skiing or I go skiing, that's one thing, right? But if I'm like competing on a professional team in some
of course.
sport and we're practicing every day and we're pushing like the extreme limits of what the body is capable of and all of that, that has a different risk profile, and there are specialized companies who deal with that.
All right, so it's good to know that some companies cover extreme sports, so to say, like sports by default. So another good
Mhm.
advice for our audience is again check the fine print because a lot of companies do not cover a lot of sports, and some other companies do cover some sports. So always do the research a bit and ask the question. It doesn't cost you anything. Just make sure because a lot of our nomad friends they do surfing, they ride the scooters in Thailand or the Philippines. They do some crazy stuff sometimes, climbing in Greece or things like that. So it's always good to know. um
Yep.
yeah,
And just to be
yeah,
clear, we do cover surfing, kite surfing, skiing, snowboarding, scooter riding, mountain biking, hiking, regular biking. Those are all covered under both of our insurances. I just mentioned, to be fully transparent, a few things at the beginning that were not covered, but like, yeah, surfing, kite surfing, skiing, snowboarding, all covered.
that's great. It's good to hear that. Cool, Neville, thanks a lot. I think we covered quite a few things. Like, is there anything else that you want to mention regarding to these topics from your experience as a co-founder that our audience might benefit from? And we discussed about like preparing and all this, but is there anything else that you want to mention in the end?
I think we really covered it really well. I would say the main takeaway that I want to leave people with is to just double check what sort of cover you have. If you're lacking, then go sign up for some health cover. It's, in the grand scheme of things, My grandmother used to say, health is wealth. When you don't have that, you don't have anything else. So take care of your health, make room in your budget for proper health insurance, whether from us or any other company. And if you are interested in signing up for insurance, you can go to our website, genki.world, and enter just a few pieces of information, and you can get a price in just a few moments and sign up online.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna leave an affiliate link in the description as well. We can get a special price with Remote Tribe. We're gonna leave some other interesting links there. So just make sure you check them out and read as much as you can about health insurance. And to be honest, it doesn't take much. So Neville, how much does it take for a person to create a health insurance with Genki, for example?
So for our travel health insurance, the Genki Explorer that we talked about, that sounded like kind of a good fit for the use cases you described. You can sign up totally online. It's like 5 questions, and it just takes a few minutes, and you can get insured starting from the same day. And again, it's just a monthly subscription. We automatically bill your credit card. You can cancel anytime and keep that one for up to 2 years.
And when it comes to the claim process, what can you tell us about claims in general? How do they work and how do they work with Genki?
Yeah, so claims are a pain point in insurance. It's the reason you buy the insurance, but it's also the most annoying part of the insurance. And we've experienced that. We've heard from our members that the claim process is difficult. So something that we're rolling out right now is a partnership with an app called Air Doctor. And the way that works is actually really nice. So you download this app, you link it to your Genki insurance account, and once you do that, then you can use AirDoctor to find and book appointments with doctors all over the world, including both general practitioners and specialists.
Specialists.
You can filter and search for them based on where you are and by language. So you can search for an English speaking doctor in Bali, for example. In some countries, you can do in office visits. They also offer in some places, like in Bali, for example, you can do actually a home visit. So, like, they can come to your Airbnb or apartment or wherever you're staying. And then there's also telemedicine. And the reason all this is relevant for claims is when you book an appointment through for a doctor through the Air Doctor app, the bill actually goes straight to the insurance company. So, in that case, you don't even have to file a claim. When you use the app, they automatically have your information and they just send us the bill.
That sounds
Likewise,
amazing. Yeah, great.
yeah, it we're trying to so again, the claim process, especially for international health insurance, where everything for an international insurance plan, regardless of travel or international health, claims are a pain, right? So it's like you got to get all the information from the doctor, you need to take pictures of it all, send it to us. Often it's in a different language, and then the claims team has to review it. That's a partner company of ours that does that, and it can take weeks. So having the Air Doctor app and just streamlining that whole process, simplifying all the payment stuff, means the doctors get paid. It means you don't have to pay out of pocket. It just makes the whole thing much easier.
Super exciting. When do you guys plan to launch the partnership?
So it's already being rolled out. Our international health insurance customers, the Genki resident ones, already have access to that. And we're in the process of rolling it out right now. Some of our Genki Explorer customers already have it, and the rest of them will have it soon.
Great, great. It sounds really cool. I'll definitely check it out. And I've used other insurance apps, and they're lacking a lot of features. But I'm very excited about this feature where basically the bill goes straight to the doctor because you do have to upload a lot of documents usually if you want to claim something. So that sounds really, really interesting. Awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
it definitely makes
Yeah.
it easier, and just being able to find a doctor wherever you are is
Yeah.
really nice, because that's also one of the pain points when you're in a foreign country. You don't necessarily speak the language, you don't know which doctor to use. You're basically just going to Google Maps often and searching doctors near me and things like that. So here you can search by language, you can search by specialty, you can see reviews and book appointments directly in the app. It just makes the whole process much easier.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks a lot, Neville. It was great to chat, and thanks for sharing so many good informations. I think our audience are gonna find them very, very useful. And all the best with Genki, and stay safe, people. Have an insurance. Take care.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.